Firstly, just thank you for everyone to taking the time as this is live this afternoon, but as recorded, if you see this later, to listen to some of the thought leadership and some of the topics we're talking about. So I would say good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on when you're listening to this. For our Irish colleagues, I just thought I'd give you a shout out. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We were going to do a few little St. Patrick's slides, but appreciate everyone might be in the pub for that. So some housekeeping rules at the moment. We've disabled the chat. We've disabled the voice for now. Feel free to ask questions. We have some moderators, and when Ed's talking, I'll also be doing some moderation. So feel free to raise your hand or just stick the Q&A into the Zoom chat, and we will come back to you. We'll have some time at the end for some questions. So for those of you who don't know me, I do see a lot of people that do know me, but for those of you that don't know me, my name's Keith Bucknell. I'm the co-founder and Chief Information Technology Officer here at Outbound Group. In this session, we're going to be looking at navigating AI risks, strategies for safe and productive adoption. If you don't know who Outbound is, we are a technology advisory, solutions and support organization. We help businesses make better technology decisions, modernize their environments, and strengthen their cyber resilience. What we feel makes us different is our customer centricity. We have a lot of experience from enterprise and corporate IT backgrounds rather than the traditional service provider or reseller. So our approach is very different to how we help organizations run technology. We also like to make sure we get the right balance of innovation, control, and security. But that balance sometimes becomes important, especially last year as we saw at our cyber event, and this year with the rapid rise of artificial intelligence. AI adoption, as you know, and probably some of our audience are already using it now, is rapidly increasing quickly. According to McKinsey, around 88%, which I think is now more 90%, but 88% of organizations globally are using AI in at least one part of their business. Yet, only a small portion of those have got the correct governance structures in place or security solutions in place. But with that comes new challenges. One of the biggest issues we're seeing with our customers is the rise of what we often call shadow AI, where employees are starting to use AI tools, web-based tools, to improve their productivity or their operations without organizations necessarily having the visibility, the governance, or the controls in place. That can create risks around data protection, IP, intellectual properties, compliance, and cybersecurity, particularly when we've got sensitive business information that our colleagues may be sharing on these platforms. So the question for most organizations is no longer whether I'll be using AI, it's how do I enable it safely and responsibly? And that's what we're talking about exactly on today's session. So I'm pleased to be joined by Ed from TrustLayer. We partner with TrustLayer quite a lot, and we've given them the opportunity to share their insights and walk through the AI risk landscape and why organizations should be thinking different strategies to AI as opposed to just blocking it. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Ed and TrustLayer. Ed, welcome.
Thank you very much, Keith, and thanks for inviting me along. And thank you to everyone, as Keith said, just to reiterate, taking the time out of your day, whatever time of day you watch this or live now. Really appreciate you doing that. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Really just want to go through, as Keith sort of said, a few areas around sort of AI usage, best practice, how to get the most out of it, but also protecting what's critically important to all businesses, your data. So, before we crack straight off into that, just going to have a little look around the sort of reward versus the risk of AI. And as Keith sort of mentioned, most people now, and if these numbers are normally reflected, if I ask a show of hands in a room, who's using AI, and there's two ways of looking at that question. Who's using AI, as in who's got a business case, they've got it embedded in, say, their customer service infrastructure, or they're using it to help them speed up writing code in DevOps or something like that, versus who's got users using AI for doing things like writing emails, redrafting, etc. Most people have people in their organization this sort of 75%, as Keith sort of said, I think 90%, it's going up. It's probably, yes, nearer 90 now, using AI in some form or another. Whereas actually, the businesses who are actually using it with a specific use case and a policy and everything is probably a lot smaller. But again, that 14% is moving up pretty quickly. So it's not something that we can just say, no, you can't do that anymore. In the old days of being in security, you could do that. We don't like it. We say, don't use it, and that's that. Go away. And we don't want to stifle productivity. We don't want to stifle innovation. That's not, the way that we operate as the IT world anymore. And to be honest with you, this is an exciting time for a lot of people. The biggest sort of leap forward in technology we've seen for a number of years. But we need to make sure we're doing things sensibly, and we're sort of taking sort of necessary precaution when we're rolling out these new tools. When we look at sort of, say, real world AI usage, most people are using it to rewrite emails to make them longer or make them shorter, to make them, I did have a conversation with someone the other day who realized that they were having an email conversation with an AI bot. And I did think if they'd got a similar bot there, and would those two AI bots just send each other emails all day? And you can come back at the end of the day and see what they've done. I'm not sure. Translation, again, another big usage. I used it myself the other day. I've got a colleague who's in our marketing department who's Portuguese. She wrote me a message and she top and tailed it with a bit of Portuguese that anyone can understand, like obrigada. And so I replied with my full reply in full Portuguese, obviously without speaking a word of it, and just trusted AI got it right. She's still talking to me, so it should have been okay. And then this is what most people seem to be using AI to, is to make themselves into cartoon characters, whether it's little dolls or whether it's pictures of themselves, etc. So, what I would say about all of those things is that they're all have an element of uploading data. Whether this, I could do a fairly sort of vague social engineering attack based on one of these models, Spencer Ware, whoever he is. I know what he does. I know his job. I know he's interested in photography and he drinks pib, whatever that might be. So, we could put together a fairly sort of loose social engineering attack just based on that kind of thing. Again, translations. What have I uploaded? Is it important company information? Is it IP that I shouldn't be sharing necessarily with the wider world? And the other thing with AI, and I did just touch on it, and you're going to look at this slide and go, "That's a mess. I can't read half of it." That's because I asked Copilot to write it, and this was it after several attempts of polishing it up. And I left it like that on purpose because it highlights a point that, yes, these are the sort of things that people can use AI for on a day-to-day basis, rather than, I say, that more in-depth usage of AI in customer service and what have you, and doing those menial tasks. But it doesn't always get it right. And I think, one of the big risks, outside of the sort of majority of what I want to talk about today, is, can you trust the output? Do we know that my Portuguese example, I can't speak Portuguese. I don't know if it's translated accurately or not. Okay, it was a bit of fun internally. It didn't matter. But if that had been something important going out of my business, I still need someone who really can understand the language to check it. I don't think AI is just quite there yet that we can blindly use it in many sort of areas. But the biggest risk that we're really seeing is data loss, right? So that is, and that then links on to things like governance and audits and things like that. Because if you upload data, if you upload a file to ChatGPT, in theory that file is potentially there available as part of the training and learning of that AI model. So it doesn't matter whether I pick ChatGPT, it could be any of them. So your data is now freely available for someone else to go in and basically access, if they know the right command prompts to put in, unless you put certain controls in place. And if you can't see what people are doing, then how can you say to an auditor, "I know where my data is," if you don't know, what AI engines are using? And shadow AI, shadow IT is not a new thing. Shadow AI is just changing a couple of letters at the end, but it's the same problem. You've got users using different tools, which are all very readily available. If you don't have visibility of what they're using, you can't see where your data's going. You can't audit it. You can't actually apply any kind of compliance to it. And you could just block it. I've seen your rules which customers have used in their I'll blanket block AI, for example. Is that stifling innovation, which we don't want to be doing? B, there's new AI engines coming out daily. So is your web filtering going to be keeping up with all of those different ones coming up? And C, if you start trying to do things stifle people's productivity, they tend to try and find workarounds. Your users, not because they want to be um, difficult or to cause the business problems, but because they want to get their job done and do it to the best ability. And if they think there's a tool that they can use, they'll start finding workarounds and using BYOD or whatever they might be. So, we need to be flexible in how we sort of use the AI. And, I've just put together a few simple sort of steps, some technology, some just policy-based stuff, and a few ideas of what we can do to sort of safely implement AI into the world. Before I do this, Keith it might take him a couple of minutes. That's why I'm going to put this in now. To going to run a poll, which will just sort of give you an opportunity just to get an idea of the people on this webinar, see what tools they're using in the workplace, and why they're using them. And we'll have a look at the results of those at the end as well, hopefully, and we'll have a quick chat with Keith about them when they come through.
Great.
So that is
Polls
out now.
kicked off, Ed, for you. So feel free, people, to comment on that. We're going to leave it open for a few slides.
Marvelous. Thank you, sir. So, first thing to do, like anything, have a policy. Now, people say policy, you think government policy, you think 900 pages. It doesn't have to be anything as complicated as that. It could be a few lines in your company handbook that you've already got. But you need to have a look at a business of where you want AI, what you want people to use it for. And once you've got that understanding, and let's be clear here, I'm not saying you need to say I'm a Copilot house or I'm a Gemini house. You can be different departments for different things. The guys in dev probably want to use something that's a little bit more sophisticated than ChatGPT for writing code. The marketing guys might want to use Canva or whatever it might be. So there's loads of different agents out there. It's horses for courses to a degree. But what you want to do is put together, some sanctioned AI apps, whether it's one, whether it's a handful. But what you don't want to do, and you wouldn't with any other application, is have a free-for-all. So have that in there, have the policy, make the staff sign up to it so they understand, that if they go outside of the guidelines, they're potentially in breach of contract, and that they could end up in a little bit of deep water, and also give them the knowledge around. And a lot of people don't realise that when they upload something to a public AI engine, it becomes publicly available information to a degree. So give them that knowledge, give them that insight. We're not dealing with silly people necessarily. We're dealing with people who aren't used to dealing with IT. Equally, I'm no good at being a lawyer, so I'm not going to sit here and point any fingers. So get the policy in place. And in the perfect world, that would be it, right? Because everyone would do what they say with the policy. Unfortunately, real world experience shows that people don't necessarily always just follow guidelines. So the next thing I think that is really critical, and I would stress on this, is once you've selected your chosen engines, agents, whatever you want to call them of choice, buy licenses. Don't use freeware. Freeware is not a good thing, because if it's free, it means somewhere they're getting something out of it, whether it's firing a load of adverts at you, or whether it's I'm just going to hang on to your data for 30 days, or I'm going to use it to train my engines, or whatever it might be. But if you buy those enterprise licenses, you can put controls in place to say, right, that data stays within our tenant. We can use it cross company, or I can just use it for myself. You can start really sort of tying down where the data is going. So absolutely don't trust freeware. Get some enterprise licenses, speak to Outbound, speak to the guys and girls down there. They can advise you, they're learning this they're having to learn this as quick as everyone else, but it's their job to be slightly one step ahead of everybody else. But they can help you out, not only with, yeah, we recommend this engine for this use case, but also, around, the licensing that you need to give you a certain level of protection and beyond just, basic license, you get support SLAs and things, you don't get the fear of phoning up Netflix, for example. I know that's not an AA engine. As a user, you're not going to get a lot of support out of those guys. You buy an expensive enterprise license or a sensibly priced enterprise license, as Keith will do negotiation. Then you're going to get that better level of support, and you're going to get that sort of trust. So once you've got your policy and you've got your licenses in place, you could use, and I sort of touched on this earlier, web security to try and help enforce that policy. The issue you have with web security is it can only sort of allow, deny it. It's blocking it outright, or it's going to let it go. A, it has to know about what it is that you're wishing to block. And B, it doesn't give you or your users the flexibility to maybe try out new AI engines. As I said, there's loads of them coming out every day. They're the best one in the world for your business might come out tomorrow, and someone in your accounts department might find it and start using it, and it might change your business, and suddenly you become, the most 20% more efficient or something. So if you just block them, then you're never going to get that. You're never going to get that benefit. And when the technology is moving that fast, I think you need to potentially, allow a little bit of flexibility. And again, you block it, then are they going to take? Well, I'm going to just take my accounts and put them on a different machine and use it completely off network, which is not a road you want to go down. So it can see what sites the user are doing. It doesn't see the interaction of what people are doing on the site. So it can see that I've gone onto ChatGPT. It can't see what I've done within ChatGPT. So where we sort of, TrustLayer, we're a security company. We sell web security, and if you wish to buy just our web security, that's fine with us. But what we would recommend is you sort of uplift that to managing it with our cloud application security broker, which still doesn't mean an awful lot, but it's like web security on steroids. So basically it gives you the ability to not only look at users on a website, but their interaction with that website, what they're doing in there. And then you can start, once you can see it, then you can start to control it. So you can see, so at the moment we've got well over 200, I think we're getting nearing 250 AI tools in our app catalog just for AI. There's thousands across other bits as well. But we can then start putting actual control around what you can and can't do within those AI applications. So you can sanction your apps. You can click ChatGPT and Claude. There are two sanctioned AI apps, and you can apply policy to sanctioned apps. But then you can start allowing other AI engines, but you can't upload data to them. We can start putting real sort of high level policy control to it. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. I know that Keith sort of mentioned to me recently that he does co-pilot readiness tests and assessments. That's the word, probably not better than test. That's I've spent too much time with my kids in their school. Assessment, much more professional. So Outbound offer this great service, and they'll start looking at your infrastructure, et cetera, and your policy and check it's in place. But what it doesn't do necessarily, well, it will do now, but it didn't do until a few weeks ago, was to actually look at what else is being used, what else is outside of Copilot. So this is a report that we ran off of our system, off our CASB system, and this was a Copilot house. They absolutely said we're a Copilot house, and they've got policy in place, and their users know what they should use. So interestingly, ChatGPT seems to be the biggest AI agent that they're using. Claude has got a little bit in there as well. Grok. Who knows what they're doing with that? And that last one there uploaded a file with Microsoft Copilot Personal. Though that one really rings a bell and resonates, and because with web filtering and most other tools, well, you've got to allow Microsoft, where they're a Microsoft Copilot house, so I can't block it. So how can I control whether they're logging in with their personal account or their business account? Either intentionally or whether they've just done it because at the weekend and they've been logged on with their personal account to do something in their Microsoft account personally at the weekend, and then Microsoft has held some cookies over or whatever, and they've accidentally logged in with their personal account Monday morning. with CASB, we can start putting controls in place. We can say, well, you can only log into Microsoft Copilot with your business account. You can't log in to your personal Microsoft. So we can really get down to that real granular level of control. Um, Interestingly, you'll see these other cloud application risks. These are other things that the CASB tool can control, things like personal email, WeTransfer, and other items. So it's what I'm talking about today is AI, and that's the buzzword. But this tool very much extends beyond that, and looks into shadow IT as a whole. And these are the sort of risks that we all see on a regular basis that people have no real visibility as to where information is going out of their organization. They've got a lot of email filtering in place. They can see all that, and then actually out the back door, if you like, data is being leaked left, right, and centre. And I will stress, 99 times out of 100, it's not maliciously. It's someone trying to get their job done. It's someone, well, I've got a 10 meg file limit. I need to send you a big file. I chuck it a WeTransfer. It's really easy. They're not necessarily cognizant of what potential data breach is going on. So, if we're going to just and I'm not going to get too technical, I promise you on that, but if you were to look a little bit into what we can see with the CASB functionality of our platform, you can see here that someone has uploaded a Natalie named file of legal document.doc, and we can see that if I actually expanded that, I can see that the more details about the time of it, etc., etc., and if it was not uploading a file, and if it was just sending that message to chat, I can see what that message is. I can see what someone's typing into chat GPT to see what sort of information they're putting in there. So I can really get a good level of visibility into where my data is going, and I can then apply control to it. And I can do that based on the user. I can do it based on the application. I can do it based on the risk level that we've assigned to that action. So we will say, for example, logging in to any cloud application is probably a low level of risk, but uploading a file is always a high level of risk. So we could just block all high risk stuff straight out the way. It's a very simple rule, take you 2 minutes. So that nobody, not just within AI, but in any of the other applications, can upload files. And then you could just say, right, okay, outside of my sanctioned apps, no one's uploading any files to the cloud or via cloud applications. Really, really easy, gives you that level of visibility. And it's not just uploading files. You can then, as you say here, you can really go in and say these are the controls we can set against ChatGPT. So we can put that in. We can tweak it very, very simply. If you really think that submitting a request is not an average risk and it's a high risk, you can change that risk level. So you can go in and you can make it as granular as you want, or you can just set it very, very simply, and get yourself to a point where you know with certainty that your AI policy is actually being adhered to, because there isn't a way around it. And if they do go outside of it, A, you can report on it, B, you know that they can't actually upload data and do any damage from doing it. So outside of technology, this isn't just to say this is not purely technology. Training's critical for everything we do. And I sort of said this before, but I feel that, with IT, we kind of expect users to know how to use it, especially, although I may look a lot older than I am. I know I am old. But since I've come out of school, we had computers at school, but they were in a room and you got to see them once a week. But if I've worked in IT, but no one's ever shown me how to use Excel. No one's ever shown me how to use email or web or anything else. You learn yourself, right? The same as your iPhone. So actually, probably most of us are using 5-10% of the capability of what things can do because no one teaches you how to use it. So, let's look into, if you're going to use AI, look into training your staff on how to use it, what are the best prompts to put in, what is the best tool and how to use that. And again, speak to your partners, speak to the likes of Outbound, and they can give you advice on what training is required. Not just on, and outside of using it, around sort of security awareness around it. Whether that's a one-off course, or whether that's that which I always recommend, a more ongoing approach with a platform which will give you those not just phishing attacks, but regular training updates around things like spotting deepfakes. Yes, phishing emails are getting better and better. AI is helping phishing emails get better and better. So, we need to make sure that people are on their toes, and they need to be also aware of the reasons why they need to be on their toes. And I think that's critical to a lot of it. It's not just a don't upload stuff to ChatGPT. It's don't upload stuff to ChatGPT because this is the risk to our business. And we don't want to be the next whoever it is who's been attacked last week and appearing in the press. And if you're a Marks and Spencer size organization, it's almost like it's not as bad for them, right? Because the government will bail them out. They're too big to fail. But for most of us normal people who don't work for Marks and Spencers and Jaguar Land Rover, it will sadly be the end of the business if you have a sort of significant data breach. So it is serious, and it is important that we make sure that everybody within any business is aware that that it's partly is their responsibility to look after their own data and the company data, because without that, then we're all doomed, as they say in people probably too young to remember Dad's Army, aren't they? But never mind. So, action plan, really simple. Define which apps we want to use. Say, doesn't have to be one, can be a handful, can be different ones for different departments. And equally, if it's different ones for different departments, that doesn't mean all departments get all of them. Use enterprise licensing, speak to the guys at Outbound, get the right licenses for you, the right level of support and everything else. But most importantly, have that sort of data sovereignty piece in there so you know where your data is going. Enforce it with CASB. I'd recommend TrustLayer actually for that, but if not, other brands are available. But absolutely, make sure you've got something that can enforce those policies, give you the visibility, and give the enforcement. And if you're not doing that, I would argue that you cannot be compliant with most regulations. Simple as that. As much as you might think you are, it's best practice. If you can't very quickly see what people are using and where your data's going, I have no idea how someone's thinking they're compliant with much. And then reinforce it with training. Yeah, just keep training, ongoing training. Risk. It doesn't have to be about beating people up all the time. I know some people some businesses who like to have a little joke prize at the Christmas party of who clicked on the least phishing emails on their phishing simulations they send out, who got who's taken the most courses. Just a bit of fun, but actually just gets everyone talking about cybersecurity in places where they perhaps don't always. So keep the training going, and be aware that this tech changes every week. So the training probably needs to be regular and ongoing. So what we're going to do next. So I would say, look, if you could speak to your outbound account manager, speak to Keith, speak to me if you wish, get you a demonstration set up of the full capability of the TrustLayer platform, and ideally get you a trial, just to give you the visibility. We don't have to turn on any controls or anything, but very simply, we can roll this out, and within a week, we can tell you well, we can tell you within half an hour, but to get enough data, we can tell you what your teams are using, what they're doing with it, what they're using it for, and give you a bit of insight into what's going on within your business and that shadow IT. AI is obviously what we're talking about. It can do way beyond that as well. But really, and if you are looking at making an AI policy, this is a really good tool to say, well, this is what people are using. Maybe these are the places we should look first as to these the right tools for us? Because guess what? You've got a whole team of people out there doing the research for you. So please reach out to your account manager, and we can look at those tools, and see if we can get something in place and help you out for visibility. And secondly, if you like Keith's dulcet tones, maybe with a guest appearance from myself, check out the podcast series, The Outbound Edge, which Keith and the team have recently launched. I think they will be available from wherever you get your podcast very soon. If not, you can see them there on the link there.
Yeah.
So look,
2 weeks
I
out
think we'll
on that
open
one.
it up for questions, Keith, if we could.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of questions.
Brilliant.
Not sure about dulcet tones. I prefer social influencer, but
Okay, sorry, Keith. No, you've
and
been
how
in
do you know
TikTok.
this is me or this is a deep fake? But anyway, yeah, we've got what. So before we do questions, I'll share the results of the poll.
Yes.
very very briefly. Everyone can have a quick read. We'll put something on the web page on this. Interesting. Majority ChatGPT Copilot. We can save Copilot conversations for another day. But as soon as the agents come out, and then slightly less using kind of Google and others. Perplexity was one we've seen. We're doing a bit of work with Claude with some apps. We've rewritten a ERP system with Claude, which was interesting. And then, yeah, I think the majority is the general consensus is security and compliance, which is great. A few people have heard of Shadow AI, and in fact, I only well, I thought I'd came up with the idea, but when I googled it, now everyone had come up with it. So yeah, we will share those results online. So first question from Gonzola was, is this AI auditing in line with DLP? If so, should we have capabilities around what is uploaded where? So if third-party cloud hosting providers, interesting, can be audited, like Dropbox WeTransfer, which comes to the slide you said, Ed, mega. Can we audit shared files through other providers such as LLM services? Ed.
So we can, and I have to be careful when we talk DLP because there's a limit to our personal capability, but we can monitor and we can see what files are being uploaded. We can block files being uploaded, so blanketly. What we can't do at the moment is look for sort of keywords within those documents, or you can't tag them. I know that if you can have a full DLP solution that you'll tag certain documents, they don't leave an organization without approvals, etc. That's not where we're at the moment. And I say at the moment, I don't think we've got any desire really to go right to that level simply because it adds a huge amount of complexity and unfortunately cost. But what we are doing as a business and where we sort of our direction of travel is looking at sort of small language modules that will be able to start looking at what's been within uploads or within people's what they're putting into the chat GPT and blocking that. So that probably second half of this year for us for that. But for now, we can absolutely say, yeah, you can't upload files. Most people use SharePoint, right? If you're a Microsoft house, so why are we using Dropbox? So we can just block uploading files to Dropbox. We can allow you to download them because someone else's business might use Dropbox. So you can download their files, and we can scan them and make sure it's not malicious links, etc., using the web filtering. But we can stop you from leaking data through all of those applications, as well as the chat GPTs or any of the other AI agents we've got.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Ed. Throw out to the attendees. Any other questions? You can raise your hand if you like, and we'll unmute everybody, or just stick everything in the chat. I'll stop sharing the poll as well. Anything else from anyone? One comment was someone's moved from ChatGPT to Claude, which is superior in their opinion. Totally agree. No Groks out there. No Skynets. I was told not to say Skynet, so
You're banned from saying Skynet. You've done so well, Keith. You got all the way we're nearly at the end, and you had to just slip it in. Then you.
Yeah. Okay. A little bit about how we're looking at AI. Cards on the table. A little bit of inside knowledge. So we're currently investigating some third-party integrations that will link into some of these LLMs around some of our service desk operations, not customer facing, more the internal stuff. So the reporting, the chasing of tickets, the stuff on hold. We're looking internally about how we can expand from just Power Apps and expand out from there. We're introducing some customer service portals and some service requests and stuff, and I've had a little play around with Claude on that, or even some other vibe coding around Lovable. All still test and dev as opposed to anything else at the moment. We have embraced the licensed version of Copilot, and we're also looking at the enterprise version of ChatGPT and Claude as well. Okay. Last
I'm
one
glad you've
minute.
been listening to me, Keith.
Yeah, yeah, oh,
Yeah,
100%.
good boy.
Always. It's the AI. See, there's the implant inside me. Anyway, right. Anything else from everyone? If not, I will thank everyone for coming. Feel free to reach out. You know where we are: social, emails, account managers, everything. We're more than happy to do a more detailed dive into TrustLayer, why we think they're better than potentially other players in this space. I'm more than happy to look at demos or proof of concepts as well, especially around locking down that AI or even proving about shadow AI if you need anything for your board or business cases. Ed, anything from you?
No, I think you summed that up very nicely, Keith. So yeah, please reach out. Let's yeah, we're absolutely more than happy to get out there, get that visibility in there, and so you can start seeing what people are really using. If nothing else, I'd be interested to see if it matches what you put in that poll.
Yeah, great. We are doing some more webinars coming up. We're trying to do these a bit more regularly, hence the podcast as well. They're all going to be different ones. Some upcoming podcasts are looking at, I should remember this off my head, compliance, risk and compliance, information security, disaster recovery. Are they tick box exercises? We're going to have some other podcasts looking at non-vendor specific solutions, and we're also going to get vendors in and give them a bit of a head-to-head virtual debate. And if you want anything specifically on webinars, the next one that's coming up, I think, will be around AWS probably, and some of the AI around AWS, but we'll be doing some further ones there. So just reach out to us if you want anything specific. I know that I'm going to be unpacking cloud VPNs, SASE, ZTA at some point. Oh, so complicated. So thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, everyone. We will send the recordings out, and I appreciate all your time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.